Recording. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for QuickBooks Online with Dr. Sandra Taylor Sawyer. Today's webinar is going to go from 9 a.m. to about 1:30 p.m. We'll resume our normal schedule on the 16th, which is 9 to 4. And before we get started, I want to make sure all our attendees know how to raise their hand and use the Q&A. So if you have a question, at the end of our presentation, I'll ask you to raise your hand. But if something's going wrong during the webinar, we're on the wrong slide, you can't hear or see us, just raise your hand for me. So if everybody would raise your hand, the emergency hand. Perfect. I like seeing all the different hands. So let me lower everybody's hand. And then if you could put a hi, hello, how are you into the Q&A, just so I know you know how to use the Q&A. And if you put all your questions in there, we'll answer them periodically and at the end of the webinar today. So let's see, a hello from Sandra, hello. Good morning from Bernadette. Greetings from Doug. Hello from Chad. Hello from an anonymous attendee, and they're glad to see us, but we're glad to have you here. Hi there from Jean. Hello from Delilah. Hi from Leela. Hello from Dara. Good morning from Monica. Good morning from Mario. And Ola from Kathleen. So I think you guys know how to use the Q&A. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sandra Taylor Sawyer. But I want to let you know, my name is Christopher Garcia. I will be in the background today. If you have an issue with Zoom or anything, you could feel free to chat me and I'll be able to answer that chat. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sandra Taylor Sawyer.
All righty. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. Hey, good morning to everyone. And I just launched one of our first polls. We are going to have fun in this over the next, I don't know, 5 hours that we have today, something like that. And then again on Thursday. So if you don't see a poll or a little button that popped up, either switch screens or I'm not sure if it would be where exactly it would be. It probably would just say lunch or poll or something to that effect. And we'd like for you to answer that question. And it just says, which of the following wild animals do you closely relate your personality? And so you have 6 choices. So as you all are trying to find that and complete that little poll for me, I appreciate it. As Christopher said, we are the New Mexico Small Business Development Center, and part of our services that we offer is one-on-one confidential counseling, business counseling, and the other is training. And so you all are taking advantage of that training that we offer throughout to all of our clients and those who haven't begun to be our clients yet as well. So thank you for coming and attending, and I really want to congratulate each of you. We've had a large number of people who have registered for this webinar. However, that really doesn't really matter if you don't show up. It's not really going to help. So I really I want to say hands off, give you a clap for showing up and to participate. So I believe everyone has answered the poll, so I will end that right now. And so we are doing QuickBooks Online. And Christopher has already given you quite a bit of information. So I will show you that the results of that poll here in a little bit. Let me just get my screen together. So just a little bit about me, so you'll kind of put it a little bit in perspective to see what my knowledge base is. I am the director of one of our local centers here in New Mexico. Of course, we do have SBDCs throughout the state of New Mexico, as well as throughout the nation, and then the territories of the USA as well. I am also a QuickBooks Pro advisor. So I have been dealing with QuickBooks for a long time, long time. I do have a few businesses, and my background is in accounting, and then I have a doctorate in higher education administration. So want to show this poll at this time, just to do a quick little icebreaker. So it's really interesting. I think I'm sharing the results there. So we do have, looks like we have elephant, if I can see that correctly, is, so most of you are elephants. That's interesting. And we have a, next would be zebras. Okay. And then tigers, and then Sandra, I don't identify with wild animals. Okay, I can totally relate. Just thought it was something fun to do, but I have got to ask the question, and you can put this in the, actually you can put it in the chat. So why did you pick elephant? Anybody want to give me a 1 or 2 word of why you said that you identify closely with the elephant? And let's see. Everybody's like, I got to find the chat. No takers. Or are you guys putting in the Q&A? Okay. So what about my tigers? There are 4 of you that said tigers. Okay, got some popping up.
Somebody said the chat is disabled, so I'll try to enable that.
Oh, okay. So that was on you, Christopher. Oops, let me go to my open.
Feel free to use the Q&A though.
Yes.
Because chat is disabled.
Yeah. All righty. Let's see. Is it on now, Chris?
No, but we'll use the Q&A.
Okay.
And Kathleen says, what was the question again? And an anonymous attendee says, I am an elephant because of its emotions and devotion.
Ooh, I like that. Emotions and devotions. So, and then we have a tiger. Do you want to read that one?
Sure. Dara says, tiger because I can be nice and loving, but when it comes to my family, I can be very vicious.
Yeah, like that too as well. Awesome. So, you know, I'm going to really kind of just spend not too long on the one comment that we have. An elephant because of its emotions and devotion. I would have to say that you definitely have to be devoted to do QuickBooks. You guys like how I kind of just flipped that really quick? Really, QuickBooks, as I said, when I had first started using it, it was, I didn't like it at all. It was kind of a difficult program to use. It had a lot of interesting little quirks to it. And every time that, and we would get people who would want training on it. And I always try to get somebody else to teach it. Even though, I know accounting, I love accounting, but I just did not like QuickBooks. And this is when QuickBooks was like the 2.0 or the 3.1 QuickBooks. I mean, way long time ago, in the early 2000s. And so, but over the years, QuickBooks has really done a great job of where it started to where it is today. And the QuickBooks Online program is a testament to that. But you do have to be devoted, and you will go through the roller coaster ride of your emotions, hands down. Sometimes it could do things for you that you're like, yes, this is really great. And then some things that you're wanting it to do for you, and it's like, it's not going to do it. And they're not going to make that option available or even, kind of research it. But it is still a good program, definitely to begin with your business. And then depending on how your business grows, you could probably use it for throughout your business life. So that's enough about that portion. So we are going to talk in this first part on these particular topics. Try to really get you where you are knowledgeable about the different subscriptions to QuickBooks Online and how you can get around on the online platform. And I hope to do some expenses, show you how to purchase items as a business. And then on next week, we will really start where we're doing more of customer transactions and talk about taxes, how you would pay your sales tax. And we'll hit a little bit on payroll, but it won't be as in depth as I would like it to be during this time. So one of the things we do want to let you know that we do offer is that, because you are taking this webinar with the New Mexico Small Business Development Center, you do have access to our, to myself or even one of our other counselors that are very knowledgeable in QuickBooks. And so as you go and you're working on QuickBooks Online, or you're really still trying to decide if you want to go with that platform, you do have a resource after this webinar. So just want you to get in touch with the SBDC that is in your area, and then they will then get it either in touch with myself or Chris or one of our other advisors that can help you. All righty. So the other thing, just on the top, most of you did receive the link to the additional material that Christopher had sent out to you. If you didn't receive it, then I'm sure Christopher will definitely put the link in chat and send it to you via email again. You do not necessarily have to have that document open or printed out in order to go through this webinar. I will tell you probably a good 95% of what I'm going to share with you is in the book. It may just be in a different format, but it is in the material that we are sending you. So really what I would ask that you do is take notes on things that like questions or something that you're really not sure, that you may not really understand that I had said or that I've shown you, and you need a little bit more information on it. That's how I want you to take your notes. and not try to write down things that I say, definitely not verbatim, because then you'll be lost. So don't do that. So really just concentrate on questions as it relates to your business. Kind of think how you can use these different examples that I'm going over in your business and your record keeping system. And then again, something that you know, you really want a little bit more information on, or you really just didn't get it, then, you know, jot it down just real quick, and then we can come back to it. Rather, if that's during Q&A, or if it's meeting with you one-on-one and talking about that more in depth. Okay, so hopefully all minds are clear on that. And so we will go on. So businesses, small businesses, there is a high failure rate in businesses. And, you know, most businesses after their first 5 years, 50% of those are have closed their doors or gone on to another probably business or something else that they're doing. So really kind of what helps businesses is to make sure that they are taking care of the business side of their business. And your books is an important part of the business side of your business. So in this seminar, I'm not going to really show you how to convert your QuickBooks desktop for those of you who may have, may be using QuickBooks desktop and you're looking at going into QuickBooks Online. I really want to talk about that in depth, because we really highly recommend that you reach out to a QuickBooks Pro advisor if you are one of those who are looking at going from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. And what I want to do, and I just want to kind of get a feel for where we kind of are in QuickBooks, who we have out in the audience. So I have another poll that I just launched. And the question is, how long have you used QuickBooks Online? So this is the online version. And if you list that you've never used, which I have a few, actually it looks like almost half or over half, yeah, have never used QuickBooks Online. If you put in chat, if you are using QuickBooks Desktop. And so if you are using QuickBooks Desktop, just put desktop in the chat. Just kind of want to get a feel for where everyone is. I think I have one other person that hasn't answered the poll. And it doesn't count you, Chris, right?
No, I didn't enable it to let me answer.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that that one person wasn't you. Okay. Well, I'm going to go on and end the poll now. Okay. So it looks like we have, well, let me go on and just share the results here. Move this up. So it looks like we have about 6 people who have used QuickBooks less than 2 years, 2 that have in 2 to 5 years, 1 in more than 5 years, and then the bulk of you is that you've never used it. Okay, so let me speak to my folks that have used it for 2 or more years. This is a basic QuickBooks Online webinar. So a lot of things I will discuss with you, I will guarantee you probably already know. And so it's definitely as I ask questions, or if you have some tips or things, that you would like to share that you've done, then, just let Chris or I know, and we can bring you on. And then, of course, again, speaking to my folks that have been with QuickBooks Online for more than 2 years, you see that we have a large number of people who haven't used it at all, and then some that have used it less than 2 years. So I ask you all to be very patient because at times for my more experienced users, you may feel that I may be going a little bit slow. And then those of you who haven't used it at all or are very new to it, you may feel that I'm going a little bit too fast. Either way, just let me know, and I will either slow down or explain a different way, and Chris will always come in too and chime in and ask questions as well, answer questions as well too. So bottom line, patience during this time that we're together. Okay, so let me check here. Okay, so we do have a few that have desktop. Okay, someone looking to switch. Okay. Okay, see that you've answered some things too, Christopher. All righty. And then what do we have in Q&A? Okay, I don't have anything. Okay. So those of you who have used QuickBooks Desktop, I do want to let you know that the online platform is different. Between desktop and online, it is different. So some of the I guess the philosophy behind doing the different transactions are similar. However, it looks differently, and so it can be confusing. So I just want to pre-warn you on that. Okay, so let's get into QuickBooks Online. So why should we use it versus desktop? And so here are some of the reasons to use the online version versus the desktop. And the really big one is really the cloud-based, that it is a cloud-based software, which really means that all you need is a connection to the internet, whether that's through your mobile phone or your iPad, a laptop, or a desktop computer. As long as you can have access to the internet, then you can access your QuickBooks Online data. The other neat thing to know for some of you who are like, oh man, I can't, give up my desktop, give up that kind of control, that security that I have. The cloud-based platform, it is secure. They do use that bank level 128-bit SSL encryption for your data file. And of course, as you know, that your data has to be stored somewhere. Intuit takes great security lengths to not let people know where their data farms are. And so that should give you a little bit of peace of mind there. It is for multi-users, especially like one of my businesses. I have business partners that are in different states. And so it's really neat that they can go online and look at the data. They can look at the same data that I can. and we can be on it at the same time. And that is really neat. So the multi-user access is really cool as well. And then the expense as well too. How many times have you had to upgrade your software to a newer version, only to find that your hardware, your computer, your laptop or desktop is too old. And so you're going to have to buy a new laptop or desktop to even load this new software. So just the expense of equipment is not as much as in a desktop, the QuickBooks desktop. So to do QuickBooks Online, there are different subscription levels. So in this webinar, we are going to talk about the most popular, which is going to be the Plus, which is here, the $42.50 that you see a month. Then, of course, they have Essential, Simple Start, and Advanced, and we're going to talk about each of these. So Simple Start, Online Simple Start, $15 a month. And for those of you who have not purchased QuickBooks Online, don't do it yet. We actually have a link through our America's Small Business Development Center where you can actually get the subscription and you can pay, your price is locked in, I believe, either 6 months or a year. So we'll need to check that and make sure, but it's going to be locked in a little bit longer than what if you just go out and go to the Intuit website and start the subscription. You're going to pay a little bit more. Okay, so Simple Start, we're not going to go over Simple Start. Even though it's an online platform, it is still different from the other three that we're going to talk about. But it is basically, it's a one user online access. It will track your income and expenses. It's basically I would say your checkbook on steroids. That's basically what Simple Start is. It's not going to track inventory for you if you have inventory. So it's going to be a little bit limited. So that's $15 a month starting. Then we have QuickBooks Online Essentials. And what Online Essentials will do, whereas the Simple Start will not, is that you can have accounts payable. And so for some of you, this might be a really great feature. And this is where once you get a bill, even though you're not going to pay it for a week or 2 weeks or maybe the next month, you can still go on and enter it into QuickBooks. It will be part of your financial statement. And so when you're looking at your finances, it will basically give you a truer view of your business finances. And that's what using accounts payable will do for you. Also, multiple currencies. If you export or import goods or services, then you can actually print your invoices or your documents where it will show either in pesos or dollars, if you're dealing with a company in Mexico or anywhere. So you can do multiple currencies. Also recurring transactions. And this is where if you have a particular bill that you have or a particular invoice that you have and it's the same thing every month or very similar, you can make it a recurring transaction. And then all you would have to do is just click like 2 buttons and then it will prepare your invoice for you because all the information is already there. And also track billable hours for customers. And again, for those of you who need multiple people with their own user access to your QuickBooks Online, it's up to 3. And that's for $27.50 a month. Then the most popular is the QuickBooks Online Plus. So it will do everything that the Simple Start and the Essentials will do. Plus, you can have an unlimited number of users just for reports only. So for some reason, if you have like your sales reports and you have several salespeople that need access to various reports, then you may want to consider the Online Plus because you can give them access to it. Purchase orders, for those of you who use purchase orders. For those of you who have maybe different departments or more than one department, or you have more than one location and you want to be able to track your sales and your expenses based on that department or on that location, then you may want to consider Online Plus. For those of you who do have inventory, and when I say inventory, I'm saying inventory where you are either purchasing or creating inventory and then you're selling it to your customers. And you want QuickBooks to keep track of how many light bulbs you have or how many pencils that you have that you can sell to your customers. It can do that for you. It can also do inventory bundles. And the best way to describe this is like a floral shop. So a floral shop can sell a bouquet or, a dozen long stem roses and just sell it. Or they can take those, a plant and add a teddy bear to it and maybe a coffee mug, wrap it up in their plastic in a basket and then put it on their shelf and then sell it as a bundle. So QuickBooks will allow you to do that. Not only sell it as a bundle, but they can still sell those individual inventory items. It also lets you do projects. We'll talk about that. 1099s, we'll talk about that later. Budgets, very important. Also, a great way to really take care of the business side of your business is to know, what you're wanting to spend or what you can spend in the upcoming year. So you want to do a budget. And then it allows you to have 5 users that can access this QuickBooks Online platform. So that's $42.50 a month. And then the QuickBooks Online Advance, which is $100 a month. And this one, so the other two, or the other two that I talked about, you will have general ledger accounts, classes, and locations. But what Advance will allow you to do is have an unlimited number. The previous ones it's a limit, I believe, of 250. But Advance allows you to have way more than that. You can also do batch import of invoices. It has an automated workflow system, and we'll get into that. Even though you can do custom fields in the other two, the Advance allows you to do more enhanced customized fields. You have access for 25 users that can have their own individual login. And then you can have 3 accountant users. It gets you way more reports that will come automatically with it. And it will also get you into what's called the priority circle membership, which when you have issues, difficulties, questions, what have you, they're going to, you have more of a hotline than the other services will. Okay, so those are the 4. We'll really only talk about 3, but our main concentration will be with the QuickBooks Plus. So let's get a little bit of participation, because I need to take a drink of water here. So which QuickBooks Online would this particular business need? So this individual sells cosmetics at house parties. They need to keep track of income and expenses. They don't have any inventory, and they pay all of their expenses via a credit card. So if you can just type into chat, which one you think that this business owner, which QuickBooks Online subscription would they use? Okay, so let's check that out. Okay, so QuickBooks Plus, Basic, Essentials 1, Essentials with a question mark. Okay, so it would be, oops, let me get back there. It'd be actually Simple Start. So Simple Start will give them the ability to track their income and expenses. Since they pay all of their expenses on a credit card, they really don't need an accounts payable feature. And then they don't have inventory. So they won't. So Simple Start will actually work for them. So let's do another one. So we have a dental practice, and now they use a third-party dental practice software that manages their billing and their accounts receivable management. And they do record their revenues and payment using a patience in their QuickBooks Online program. Most of their supplies they will pay using a company credit card, but they do have some bills that they pay by check. And they do need access for the dentist, the office manager, the bookkeeper, and the accountant. So which have you guys already started in chat? Let's see. I got to look at my time. Plus, someone said advanced, someone said number 2. That's good. Plus. All righty. So this one would actually be the QuickBooks Essentials, which is the number 2 one. So $27.50 a month. And this is where it will allow them to, oops, sorry about that. It will allow them to do invoices and accounts payables, help them with their cash flow and those kind of things. All righty, let's do another one. This one is a interior design firm, and they have billable expenses, which means that as they purchase different items, then they will pass that over to their clients as a markup on their invoice. And they also carry a line of items that they maintain in their inventory that they will use on design jobs. So they also want to do budgets and time tracking. So which one do you think? Exactly. You guys probably kind of got the figured it out here. So it is Plus. And the Plus is the most popular. Okay, our last one. This one is a mortgage company, and they have staff that need to keep track of the appraisal value of each of the homes that they have. They also need a more of a customized drop down field when they are looking at different loan types or a predefined list of types of loans. And they also want to the name of their contact person to appear on all of their documents, which would be another customized drop down field. So which ones do you think that one would be? Let me click on that. So thanks, Tara. Rodriguez says panelists. Says advanced. Trying to read, right. So you guys kind of got it. It will be the advanced. Okay. So for those folks, I have another poll going. Which of the following QuickBooks Online subscriptions do you use? So I kind of want to see where, especially those who are are currently using QuickBooks. I want to see where you are. All righty, we'll keep that up. So I got a poll going real quick. So I grab a quick drink of water. Okay. So which of the following QuickBooks Online subscriptions do you use? Either QuickBooks Simple Start, Plus, Advanced, or of course, not using QuickBooks Online. All right, we'll close that out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. So it looks like the kind of an even split. I didn't have everyone who's using QuickBooks Online already actually answer, but Advanced, Plus, and Simple Start. Okay. So again, for those of you who are using Simple Start, the format may still be a little bit differently. The one thing about Simple Start, you can't go from Simple Start to Plus or even Advanced or Essentials. Not sure why QuickBooks did it this way, or Intuit, I should say, but they did. They have it where the only subscription levels that you can go up to a subscription, or you can go back down, which is neat, is if you have the Essentials, the Plus, or the Advanced. So if you're using Simple Start, then basically the only thing that you can do with your data is import it in to Essentials, Plus, or Advanced if you decide to upgrade to a different online subscription. And then for those of you who are if you're using Essentials and Plus, and for some reason you're like, I don't need all that, and I want to go to Simple Start, you can't, well, you can go back, but again, you'll have to just import your data into it. So it won't be a smooth transition between them. But that's a great conversation, definitely, to have with your pro advisor, or, if you want to have more of an in-depth conversation with one of our business advisors at the NMSBDC. Okay, so how do we get around QuickBooks? So that's what we're going to do in this next section. So at the top of the screen, and I believe, Christopher, you're going to put the test drive in the chat, that link, but it is in the information that we sent you. I sent each of you. QuickBooks allows us to do a play with a sample online subscription. Now, of course, it's not going to give you some of the bells and whistles like payroll. For those of you who are doing payroll, it's not going to give you that capability, but it will allow you to be able to just play around in QuickBooks, do some transactions, see what it looks like. And there's no way that you can mess anything up, because as soon as you log off, then everything that you've changed, it doesn't save it. And so you can't break the system, in other words. So those are the links. The first one for the test drive, this is for Essentials. Well, really Plus. It would be for the Plus subscription. And then this other link, of course, that says Advanced, is for the Advanced. So again, in this class, we will be just dealing with the Plus subscription. Okay. All righty. So in order to do QuickBooks Online, well, actually, they've kind of changed that. Really, if you have any QuickBooks program or product, you have to have a Intuit account. And of course, it doesn't cost you anything. So you are going to go on, and if you haven't signed up for QuickBooks, of course, then you can definitely do it here. But again, don't do it yet. Wait until, for those of you who haven't gotten a subscription yet, wait until use our link to get a subscription. But anyway, to get into your QuickBooks Online, you will go to the Intuit website for QuickBooks, and you would sign in with your username and your password. And it does use a two-step verification. You do have the choice of either it going to an email address or to send a text to your phone, a code to your phone. So it'll give you those two options. Okay. So once you do that, and you sign up to actually decide what subscription level that you want, you're going to be asked a series of questions. And one of that is definitely the name of your business. And so some of this stuff, and we do have a little checklist of things that you should have before you begin this setup wizard. And of course, one of those is the name of your business. And here, some of you will have your legal name, and you may also have a DBA. And there will be a place where you can, QuickBooks will ask you, you know, what your legal name is, and then what your DBA is name, what your DBA name is as well. This is also for those of you who are using QuickBooks Desktop and you're wanting to switch over to the online. This is where you can import some of your data. So some of the data that you can import from desktop would be your customer names. You can import your chart of accounts, your suppliers list, as well as your products and services. So those things you can import, which is good because, I mean, especially for those of you who may have a lot of customers or you have a lot of products and services, you don't want to type that all over again, you can import it in. And again, this is where we do encourage you to seek the advice of a pro advisor if you're going from desktop to online. And even if you're not, highly recommend that you do it, even if you're using QuickBooks for the first time. So this is the QuickBooks Online interface. And we are going to look at each of these. This little black strip right here to the left is called the navigation bar. Then on this navigation bar, you have the plus new sign, and this will help you to create transactions, and we'll go over that as well. Then you have your search, you have your gear icon, and the settings and the help, and we'll talk about those. So first, let's talk about the gear icon. So this is to the top right of your online subscription. When you're on there, you would click on the gear, and then this drop down box will appear. So you have 4 columns. You have your company and everything that's under your company. Then the second column is list, and all your lists are here. The third is tools, and then everything dealing with tools. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry. It's kind of jumping on me. Sorry, folks. There you go. And then your profile. So that's all under the gear screen. So let's look a little bit more in depth on the My Company. So when you click on, again, the gear and then the My Company, there are, and then the account and settings, there are 7 major categories under this tab. And you can always change whatever the settings are, and we're going to look at these, at any time. So once you put something in, you can go back and change it. So let's look at the company first. So the company, and hopefully this is large enough so everyone can see. This again is where you would put the name of your company, which would be your DBA, and then your legal name if it's different than your DBA. And if you don't have a DBA, then your company name and your legal name is going to be the same, right? Most of you probably have a EIN number, a federal employer identification number. If you don't, if your business is tied to your Social Security number as far as the Internal Revenue Service is concerned, then you're going to use your Social Security number. Your company type, and if you don't know what your tax form would be, whether you're a sole proprietor, a partnership, a corporation, or S corporation, that's something that you can get from your accountant. And then also myself or one of my colleagues can, kind of give you some information on that as well too. Your industry. And then if you have a company email, phone number, your address, all of this you're probably going to want to fill in at some time, especially for those of you who will be using invoices, because a lot of this information, your contact information, your address, you do want on your invoice. Then the next one under settings is your billing and subscription. So from time to time, when you're having issues with QuickBooks Online, you may call into Intuit, and they will ask you, the representative will ask you, well, what is your company ID? So right here, under billing and subscription, this is where your company ID is located. So just a little tip, that we try to do is that we have it's a Word document, and it's titled Important Numbers. And here we list like a space for your federal ID number, for your New Mexico business ID number. We have NIST codes. What else do we have on that? We have, for those of you who have employees, your wage withholding code. Can't even think of all the numbers that you may have for your business. So anyway, my whole point is, it's really neat to have one sheet of paper where you have a list of all of your business important numbers. So for QuickBooks Online, I would recommend that you put this wherever you're putting all of your other important numbers. And if you guys are interested in that little Word document, we can get it out to you. It's very, very useful, really is. Anyway, so down here, it also tells you what your subscription status is. So for this company, they are using QuickBooks Plus, and QuickBooks is going to give you a 30-day trial period when you activate a particular subscription. So you have 30 days before they will start charging you. You can always upgrade your plan, or you can downgrade it, which is what I was talking about earlier. And you can always cancel as well too, and it will give you what the amount is. Then there's some other apps that it talks about here as well. And then the usage, really just lets you know, how many people can have access to your data file, and where are you in the number of user access that you've already given out. So right now it's one user, which is probably the admin person. But for this one, we can have up to 5. Then we have the chart of accounts. And if you don't know what that is, we'll get into that later. But you have a limit of 250. And so again, it tells you where you are. Okay. Then the sales settings. This is where you can customize your sales documents, really kind of to be your own. And so there's all different type of options that you can trigger on or leave off. If you're doing discounts, if you want to track quantity and price rate under your products and services, if you want to charge a late fee for invoices that are overdue, you can do that as well. Progress invoicing allows you to create multiple invoices from an estimate. And this is really a neat feature, if you're like in a construction company, or maybe an interior decorator type business, where someone gives you a job and you complete it over a certain time period, a month, 2 months, what have you. And progress invoicing will help you be able to invoice them based on the work that they've already done, but they still have more to do. Messages, you can create default messages on the different sales forms. You can also do reminders. So really, you can really customize the statement to fit your need. Your invoice. And then you have your expenses. And your bills and expenses, of course, it will show the products and the services that you have purchased. It will also allow you to track expenses by customers. So let's say that you purchase a particular piece of furniture or item for this particular customer, your customer, and then you want to make sure that, of course, you mark it up and you sell that particular piece to a particular customer. So it will allow you to do that. Let's see, you can do purchase orders. I know a lot of, I really haven't seen this a lot in smaller businesses where they do purchase orders, but that's an option for you as well as messages. Okay, and then you have your payments. And so this is where you can email invoices to your customers, and then they can just pay you from that invoice, either with a credit card or bank transfer. And then of course, if you already have an existing account, then you can always connect it. Okay, and then our advanced settings. And again, this is still all the same, but let me show you a smaller screen so I can kind of split it up. You can see it a little bit better. And so again, this is something that your accountant can help you with if you're not sure of the questions. So you'll need to tell QuickBooks what is the first month of your fiscal year. So if you're on a January to December, that's when you do your tax returns. Or some businesses, especially partnerships, they will be, I think it's on a April to March fiscal year. So whatever your first month of fiscal year, you'll want to put it here, as well as the accounting method that you will use. We'll talk about this later. So sensitive here. There we go. Again, the tax form we talked about. If you are wanting to use a numbering system for your chart of accounts, then you can turn that on as well too. And then of course, we'll talk about tracking with classes and locations later. And then this is the bottom portion of the advanced settings. Here you can, whatever you can make automatic. Let's say if your client has your customer on their invoice, they have some credits where, you know, they may have paid you more than what the invoice was. And so they basically pay $500 more. And then you create a new invoice for them. Then you can tell QuickBooks if they have a credit, then go on and automatically apply that. Projects, talk about that, time tracking, and here's the currency. I will say you do need to be careful with the currency because once you actually turn currency on, you can't turn it off. So this is the one that again, once this off is on, you can't go back. And then the other preferences, I really kind of like this too. Your date format. If you want that to be differently, then you can tell QuickBooks. Number format, the same. Customer label. Maybe you don't call your customers, maybe you call them clients. So you can change it here. I do the books for one of our civic organizations that I'm involved in, and I use here members instead of customers. So again, it allows you to customize that to your needs. And then this little one, sign me out if inactive for, and it has a 1 hour. So if you're sitting and you're doing work on your QuickBooks Online account and there's no activity for either an hour, because you can change it to 2 hours or 3 hours, then QuickBooks will automatically log you off. That does come in handy. Okay, time tracking. Let me move myself here. Sorry, I kind of have my screen in the way. Okay, so time tracking, if I have it where I want to keep track of my employees that work on a particular customer, and I want to be able to document that, whether or not I charge the customer or not, but I just want to know, how long it took my employee to put in a pond, if I'm a landscaping business for this particular customer, then I can track it here. So that's the time tracking that's available. And of course, I already talked about that. And this is where these are the options that you have: customers, donors, guests, members, patients, tenants. Okay. All righty. So the other thing, when we are looking at managing our users, we can give them different permission levels, which is really important as well too, because even though you want individuals to have access to your data files, you may just want to just give them access to certain areas of your data file. So here, and hopefully you can see this is showing where we just have a standard user and then the company admin. Of course, when you create the subscription, and I highly recommend all of my business owners to make sure that you maintain company admin status and that you do not give your username and password out to any of your employees for a company admin. And I would also recommend highly that you be very careful in giving, again, an employee company admin privileges. We have just seen some horror stories where people have, small business owners have hired folks and made them, really a part of their business, part of their family. And yes, we do want them to be a part of that, but unfortunately things happen. And I'll get the business name here and the book that they wrote where, and Christopher, well, I'm not sure if you did that, but anyway, their bookkeeper basically stole over $500,000 from them. And that's because they trusted them so much. So just be very careful, you as business owners, when you are assigning users. Okay, I'll get off of that. Alrighty. Let's see. See what else we have here. Manage users. So let's go over that. Okay. So the first thing that you would do, or one of the things that you would do, of course, you'd come to manage users and then just click on add user. Then the next screen that will come up will say, okay, what is their email address, and then select the user type that you're wanting them to have. So you could select standard user, or again, if you're just wanting them to look at reports only, or if you are wanting your employees to have the ability to use their mobile phone to check in. So use it as a time card or time machine, punch machine. Then you can give them that access as well too. So that is with manage users, and then customizing different forms. And these would be your invoices, any of your sales forms, whether it's invoices or receipts, where you can really customize it a little bit to your liking. Whether you want to add a logo, you can add a logo to your invoice. You can change the coloring, the font of it. You can add different content to your invoice. it varies, such as, if you want the due date on there, the shipping information, you can change the width of the columns as well. And there are some customized fields that you can add to your invoice. I believe it's up to 3. And of course, it may be more with advance. And let's see here. I think I've talked emails, how they can pay. So you can really just customize it to your liking. Okay. So I have to really be careful when I am talking. Number one, because I can't see you all. I just see my computers. And sometimes I forget to look at the chat and the Q&A. So I'll have to tell you a quick story here. When I was teaching accounting, I had one of my students that, as I was going in accounting, for those of you who haven't taken it, it's like a 4 credit hour class. And you're meeting, it may be about 3 hours or more in one setting. But anyway, so I had this student who would take his cigarette, and see if you guys can see me. I think you can. And this is a pencil, it's not a cigarette, but he would balance it on his nose and lean back in his chair. And that was my cue. Sandra, I need a break. So I've been talking for over an hour. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break. So Christopher, I think he's already left. So let me stop the recording. If I can find it. And we're going to take a. Okay. So we've just finished customized forms. And now we'll talk about chart of accounts. So when you think about chart of accounts, you think about it as really the structure, what's holding up your business. You can think of it as the concrete, the structure, the trying to think of building a building, can't even think of the different names, the 2x4s, your body, so the backbone, your backbone, that's really what your chart of accounts is for your business, and is basically accounts that are used, every transaction that your business has that will appear on your financial statements, there's an account that's tied to it. And so you can access your chart of accounts using the gear icon, also as shown in this slide. You can use the navigation bar and just go down to accounting, and you'll have an option and it say chart of accounts or reconcile, and you can click on chart of accounts, and then this is what you would get. Okay. Another feature of QuickBooks is the labs. And what the QuickBooks labs will allow you to do is to test any upcoming changes or new things that Intuit is thinking about adding to QuickBooks. So basically you have access to the beta of that particular feature, and you can go in and look at it, and whatever it's capable of doing, you can play around with it, and then you can give Intuit feedback on what you like or didn't like or what have you. So that's what the QuickBooks Labs is. All righty. So the top navigation bar, so another way of getting around QuickBooks is by these 6 items here. And these are to the right top of the screen. So you have the My Experts, the Help, Search and Recent Transactions, Notifications, and of course the gear icon, and then something that QuickBooks has added. It may have been within the last year or 2 years, but where you really sign out and then you can manage your account. So, so the other thing, again, on the, when you go to the gear and you look at lists, there are different type of lists that you can have access to. And one of these lists, of course, is the chart of accounts, and briefly talked about that. Also talked about recurring transactions earlier, but those recurring, the transactions that you made recurring, then you can see which ones they are. And here's like a list. And then, of course, your products and services, which are important for your business as well. Let's see, the other thing, let's see that I have here. Oh, attachments, important as well too. QuickBooks, just about any transaction that you do, you can upload whatever document, you know, to that particular transaction. So that's pretty cool. Okay. And I talked about all those. Okay. And then now we have your tools. And again, this is also from your gear. Your tools will allow you, if you're wanting to order paper checks through Intuit, then you can do it here. For those of you who are importing any of your customer, vendors, chart of accounts, or products and services into QuickBooks Online, you would do it here in the import data. You can also export your data back out. So I have had individuals who wanted to use QuickBooks Online, got into it and decided, I don't like it, and they want to go back to QuickBooks Desktop. So you can also export data too as well. This is also where you would reconcile, and we'll get into reconcile probably next week. But this is just one way of accessing how you reconcile. And then your budgets. And just remember, for budgeting, you have to have at least the Plus and Advance subscription. It's not available in the Essentials or the Simple Start. But this is how you would access your budget. And then I really like this Audit Log, because the Audit Log tells you who did what and when. So I was working with a client the other day, and they were, it was a transaction that should not have been there. And they said, oh yeah, such and such, I did that. And so we were able to go back to the Audit Log, and sure enough, because anytime anyone logs in using their username and their email, their username and their password, then anything that they do, it is logged. And it also helps too when you're trying to figure out problems as well too. So you can go back to that transaction. Smart Look is anytime that you need to give remote access to your screen through the Intuit tech support. So when you're having issues and they're like, can I look at your screen? Then you can come here and give them access to your screen. And then the case center is where if you have an open case with Intuit. So maybe they were working with you and they had to do some research and they'll have to get back to you. Then you would see that it's open there, that there's something else that they need to do. Okay. So on the left navigation bar, I had pointed out to you all that there was a plus new option. And when you click on this plus new, you have, again, some more columns. On this one, we have 4. We have our customers, our vendors, employees, and then other. And so our customers, you can see really anything dealing with our customers. This is where we're going to do our invoices. This is when our customer pays us, then we're going to receive in their payment. For those of you who may do estimates, so especially with construction companies, a lot of them will do estimates and really makes their life easy because they can do that estimate. And then when the client, their customer decides, yes, I want you to do the job, then they can easily convert that estimate to an invoice. And it just makes it just seamless. It reduces the number of keystrokes that you have to put in. Credit memos, sales receipts, and we'll get into that. I don't want to get into it right now. Delayed credit and delayed charges. You won't have this in Simple Smart, but you will have it in the other 3 subscription levels. And then we have vendors. So vendors, if you kind of think vendors is money going out, right? So everything dealing with money going out is dealing with our vendors. So expenses, checks, again, if you want accounts payables, you have to have Essentials or Plus. Purchase orders, only for Plus or Advance. Also, you can, for credit cards and printing checks. And then employees. So to have payroll, you have to have another subscription to Intuit, which will be an additional fee. And we'll talk about that next week. But that will activate payroll for you. And then the other column for you to do bank deposits. If you want to do a transfer, meaning from one checking account to a savings account, then this is where you would select this, a journal entry, statements. And for those of you who are keeping track of your inventory, and again, you would have to have the Plus or the Advanced subscription. This is where you would find that. And then if you want to pay down on your credit card. Then let's talk about the search real quick. So on the search, that's the magnifying glass. This is where you can search for a particular amount, or if you want to search for a name in a particular transaction, this is where you would do it here. And then you can also have advanced search as well too, that you can get a little bit more detail, put in some filters and do a search there. So that's the option there. Sorry, my mouse is so sensitive. So I'm jumping back. Okay. So now let's talk about a little bit about the left navigation bar. I've already talked to you about the plus, but on the left navigation bar, you have several other options that are listed here. And the first is the dashboard. and we're basically on the dashboard. So the dashboard basically gives you a overall view of kind of where your business is, which is pretty cool. The transaction, or you may see banking on some of yours. So it's either going to be transactions or banking. And this is where anything dealing with the bank, you know, your checkbook, where you can reconcile, where you can connect to your bank account or credit card accounts. It could be either one or both. And then you can set up rules here too. And then the next one is expenses. And if you kind of think about expenses being anything dealing with money going out. So how you're going to pay your bills, how you're going to record or print a check, how you are purchasing items using a credit card, that's what's under the expense. And then you have your sales. I think that sales is actually, where is my sales? Oh, it's in, okay, sales or invoicing. So, kind of look at the other screen. So invoicing, and some of you may have it as sales. So it's both the same thing. So this is anything dealing with your customers. So where again, you are creating invoices, receiving in payments, preparing sales receipts for them or refund receipts, doing estimates. You will do it here in this invoicing. And then projects. And this is where, well, I'll talk about projects later. Payroll. And on some of yours, your payroll, it may also say payrolls / contractors. I think it says that. But again, if you have employees and you're wanting to use QuickBooks to do payroll, then you would do it here. So again, anything with employees, paying them, preparing their W-2s, for contractors, preparing their 1099s, anything there. And then the next one is taxes. Taxes is really two. This is going to be your sales tax. And of course, in New Mexico, it's gross receipts tax. So anything as far as reporting, preparing that report for the state, or for if you have employees, that'd be your employee taxes or payroll taxes, I should say. You would do it in this feature. I forgot reports. So let me go back up. So reports, this is really why you're doing accounting, is so that you'll know where you are, what you can do or can't do for your business, because you got to know what your finances are, right? So any reports dealing with vendors and customers, your balance sheet, your income statement, your sales tax reports, any reports, that's where you will find those. Let's see. And then mileage. This will be able to track the trips that you take. If you have your own personal vehicle and you use a portion of it for your business, it can help you track those miles that you have driven. Okay. All righty. Yes, I will go back to those questions and I will click on those. Let's see. Accounting, I shared that with you. My accountant, This is where you can really communicate with your accountant. With your accountant using QuickBooks. It's really neat because if you ask, you have a question for your accountant, you can just go right into QuickBooks and give that question to your accountant and they can answer it, and vice versa for your accountant as well too. And the neat thing is that any dialogue that you have with your accountant can be right there in one area. So instead of having emails here and text messages here, which I do a lot of that, but you can have all of that electronic communication right there in QuickBooks. And so you can do it here. Then you have different apps, and we'll talk about those too. An app that will talk to QuickBooks Online is like Square. So if you're using Square as your kind of like your check register or your register, then QuickBooks and Square can talk to each other. And so that's just one of the many apps that's available. And then live bookkeeping. This is where you can actually give, you can hire someone to come in and help you set up your books. It is a US-based bookkeeper that can help you, again, like I said, set ups and maybe keep you going. So you do have that option as well too. And then the cash flow center is really where you can do forecasts of money coming in and coming out. All right. So someone said, Sandra, so can you click on that? So I'll definitely show you the expenses, and then we'll go to a live presentation here shortly. So when I click on the expense option in the navigation bar, then we see this screen that pops up, our expense. There are two tabs. There's an expense tab and a vendor tab. Then, of course, it tells us that we're on our vendors. And so it gives us a view of where we are as it relates to our vendors. Sorry, you guys, my mouse is so sensitive here. Keep my hand off of it. All right. So it gives us money bar. Can't think of what they call this. So this is called the money bar, this colorful blue, orange, gray, and green. So it tells us how many purchase orders and the amount of purchase orders that we have in real time. It gives us any bills that are overdue, that we need to pay, the number as well as the amount. And then any open bills that we have entered, but they're just not due yet. So that's what the 5 open bills at 1,603 represent. And then any bills that we have paid in the last 30 days. And then so our vendors are listed here at the bottom. And so we see our first vendor, and we can sort this alphabetically. We can also sort it by an open balance or by the numbers. But then over here to the right, we have a create bill and a little arrow that's pointing down. So that means there's a drop down box there. And there are other options that we can do with this particular vendor. So right now, because we don't have any bills that we have entered, QuickBooks says, well, the next obvious thing to do is to create a bill, right? That's the next action. Whereas this one for this insurance company, we have an open balance of $241. So we received a bill from them and we put it into QuickBooks. So the next step is to make a payment. So this is part of that workflow system that QuickBooks has in place. Okay, can look at our sales center. Okay, so when you click on either the invoicing or is say customers, you actually have, right now it shows 5 different tabs, but there is a 6th tab, so there's 6. And hopefully we'll see it when we go into the sample data file. But we have our overview, which is where we are right now. So this is anything dealing with our customers. And then we have invoices. And this is where we can actually create an invoice. Then we have customers. And just as I showed you on the vendor list, our customer list looks very similar. And we'll see that shortly. All sales and then products and services. So that's our invoicing or our customer list. Okay. And let me check the Q&A. Okay. So what is the difference between vendor and purchase order? So a vendor is basically a company that you owe money to, or someone you owe money to. And usually it would be a company. So for my business, I have a telephone bill, right? Because I have a mobile phone. So I owe monies to our local mobile cell company. So that local cell company, that local mobile telephone company is a vendor. So that's a vendor. A purchase order is basically where you are internally are saying that you need some supplies. So let's say that you need for construction business, you need certain doors that you want in stock. And so you want 5 wooden front doors. And so internally, you'll document that you need that. This is what you're wanting. And so you will actually put together an internal purchase order where you are going to send this order to a vendor. So the lumber company that's down the street. So the purchase order is basically an internal document saying what you need, the product, how many you need, the color, model, what have you, and who you're going to purchase it from. So that's the purchase order. And again, you really don't see a lot of purchase orders in smaller businesses. But, I work for the college and that's what we deal with. It's purchase orders. We got to have a purchase order before we request supplies or even equipment or anything that we need for our department and for our college. Hopefully that helps. If not, let me know. Okay. All right, so let's look at some chart of accounts, and I am going to actually go online. So I'm going to stop sharing just real quick. Yeah, because I'm going to have to toggle back and forth. So let me get to, I meant to do this when we were on break and I forgot. Oops. Let's see. Just give me a quick moment here. Well, as we're waiting till I get this together. So I have a big day tomorrow. So tomorrow's my birthday. So just for fun, without Googling me, so nobody Googles me. Can you guess my age? And I know at least 2 people on this webinar that know me, and they better not guess. And you don't get a prize, sorry. Let's see. Having the darnest time. Oh, you're so sweet, 44. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Oh, Belinda, you are so sweet. You're so sweet. I don't think I'm gonna talk to you anymore. She's one of the ones that knows me. Let's see. Take off some of this other stuff that I have. Okay. So let me go back. Yeah, 44. Oh, Anderson. That's it, 44 to 38. Elizabeth, you're being nice. You know, of course, like just by the names, you know, of course I could tell. So all the women are attempting or at least participating. Let's see, I don't know. There's some Q&A. Okay. So there's some Q&A. 29. Oh, you're so sweet, Monica. Thank you. Monica, no, we probably will not get to projects today. And Doug, you know what, Doug? I will not be offended. I'm not offended by my age at all. So it would be okay for you to guess. But I think it's all amazing that all the guys are like, nope, I'm not going there. And the women are like, giving me my age. So actually, I will be 61 tomorrow. So I'm 66. No, I'm not 66. Golly, Belinda, I am 60. Okay. Let's see. Let me just clear some of this up. Let's see. I did answer that. Oh, Martin says, as a man, I've learned not to go there. Thanks, Monica. Oh, how funny. All righty. Gosh, I should have stopped the recording on that. Otherwise, I was still taping that. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's go to make sure I do this correctly. Go to share again. All righty. So I need to make sure that everyone can see. You should see my screen and it should say Intuit QuickBooks security verification. Does if you can probably put in chat that you can see that. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so QuickBooks will always want to verify if you're a real person, and I'm sure you all have seen this before. So you just go on and click on it, and hopefully it'll open up to the sample file, but if not, then it'll just say something to the effect of, identify the fire hydrant in this picture. You got to click on the little boxes where you see the fire hydrant. But anyway, so this is the sample data file that we have that you can have access to. And I believe Chris put it in the chat. Let me just, there. I put the link to the test drive in the chat in case he didn't do it before he left. So you can have access to it. So this is our dashboard screen, and it does look a little bit different than what I would have on the PowerPoint, because QuickBooks is ever adapting and ever changing. And my slides I need to get updated slides. So anyway, so here's the left navigation bar, here's the dashboard. So what I want to do is go to the chart of accounts, and let's talk about those really quickly. So I just go to accounting, and then I have this, I wouldn't call it a drop down box, it's more of a drawer that opens up to the side. So I click on chart of accounts. And again, just let me know in chat if you do not see the screen that I'm referring to, but if you'll put that in chat and not the Q&A. So here we're at the chart of accounts. So we're at the accounting, that's from the navigation bar, and then the chart of accounts, which when we see this little green underline, that lets us know where we are. Okay. All righty, thank you guys. So I didn't do the comparison to a car, I don't think I did, but anyway, chart of accounts, they're saying is like taking a look underneath the hood. The motor, the engine, everything that goes with it is what keeps the car going. So your chart of account is what keeps your financial statements going, i.e. your business. So here on the chart of accounts, again, at the top, we have the name, so we know where we are. Over to the right, this is where we can run a report, or a new, where we can actually create an account. Because QuickBooks, once you go through the wizard, it will come up with different accounts that it will automatically put into your chart of accounts, but then there's some that you are going to want to add. And this is a great conversation to have, definitely with your accountant or bookkeeper. But before you get to that point, you can have that conversation with any of my colleagues or myself, so we can give you the basics of basically accounting. And this is part of those basics. And you'll also learn this in accounting if you take the first semester accounting class. Then the next portion, QuickBooks tells you how many of those 250 accounts that you are allowed to have that you are using. And if you go over 250, then you just won't have access to whatever new account that you created. But to get access, you can always upgrade to advanced, because right now we're on plus. So that's the other highest that we can go to. Okay, so that's all that's going to say. And anytime you see that little X, then you can click on it to close that up, and it will appear next time we come here too as well. So Lilia is chart of accounts where our general ledger would view. So your chart of accounts is part of your general ledger. It definitely does make up your general ledger. But there is a report where you could see where it would actually be labeled general ledger. So yes, it is part of your general ledger. Leave it like that. Okay, then we have so our chart of accounts really does in QuickBooks Online follows the rules of accounting. So in accounting, you have financial statements, and your financial statements are broken down into, I'll just say, two major documents. You have your balance sheet, and then you have your income statement, or some of you may know it as your profit and loss. Okay. So in accounting, the acceptable accounting rules, you are to any of your balance sheet accounts are going to appear first. So basically, when we're looking at financial statements, it's always your balance sheet first. And so QuickBooks follows that rule. So it will give you all your balance sheet accounts first. Then your balance sheet is broken down into 3 categories. Don't write all this down. Those of you that don't write it down, it's in your booklet, and we'll give you another document that's going to say basically everything I'm saying. So 3 categories on your balance sheet. You have your assets, you have your liabilities, and then you have your equity. So your assets are basically things in your business that pertain to your business. And one of those most important things, well, it is important, is your checking account, your cash, your savings account. So the most, again, this is an accounting term, the most liquid asset or thing that you have in your business is your cash. And when I say liquid, liquid basically means cash. That is what it means. It means that you have access to it within a moment where you can use it. So that's the most liquid. So in your checking account or cash on hand, if you need to make a purchase, you can do it like that, right? It's more liquid. So checking account, savings, that's going to be first because it's the most liquid. The next one is accounts receivables. And this is where basically you are extending credit to your customers to say, hey, I'm going to give you this service, or I'm going to give you this product and you can pay me later. That's what basically accounts receivables is. Now, accounts receivables in any business, and this is a great tip for my business owners here, you want accounts receivables to be very liquid, meaning that you want it to convert to cash really quickly, like in 30 days or less. Now, I know some of you, especially if you're in dealing with the government, if the government is your customer, or you're in the oil industry, then your accounts receivables, it may take you a little bit longer than 30 days to get your money. Maybe looking at 90 days or plus. But anyway, it still is liquid, but it's not as liquid as cash because you don't have readily quick access to it. And then your inventory. Again, this is those businesses, if you're a retail store. So you have items that you're in your store that is waiting just for your customers to come and purchase. So you again want those inventory items to turn into cash quickly, but it's just not going to happen, you know, as soon as you bring them into your business and you're going to sell them out through your door. Some of them will, but some of them won't. And again, depending on your industry. So if you're like a restaurant, then your inventory, man, you don't want to have bananas staying up there for 30 days, right? You want that to be out of the door really quickly. So that inventory is going to have a short life. It's going to turn into cash pretty quickly. Whereas if you have a furniture store, as soon as you get that table in, or 5 or 6 tables, it's probably going to take 30, 60, maybe 90 days or more before it goes out the door. So it's not going to be as liquid as accounts receivable, and definitely not as cash. So it just goes down the line, prepaid expenses. So all of these are assets. Your truck, your furniture, your building, those are all assets. Then the second category on balance sheet is liabilities. And this is where we start with accounts payables here. So liabilities is basically debt that you owe, whomever you owe it to. So this could be debt that you owe to a vendor for that piece of lumber that you purchase, or those tables that you purchase. It could be monies that you owe to your employees because they provided services to you, but you aren't going to pay them until a week or 2 weeks, or maybe a month after the fact. Well, that's money that you owe your employees. Taxes. You collect taxes, whether it's sales tax or gross receipts tax, or even taxes that you withhold from your employees' paycheck. This is money that you owe to someone else, some government entity. That's the debt you owe. Loans, bank loans, that's all debt that you owe. Those are your liabilities. And then the third category that makes up a balance sheet is your equity. And basically your equity, I like to explain it this way. It's if you take all of your assets, add them together, and then you sell them. Sell all your furniture, sell all of your equipment, your inventory, and then you take the money that you have from all those sales and your cash on hand, and you pay off everybody you owe. The difference is what you get. That is basically your equity. It is your net worth, the net worth of the business. That's what your equity is. Your equity also consists of monies that you take from your personal account or what have you, and invest it into your business. That's also a part of your equity. The other part of equity is when we jump to our profit and loss statement or our income statement. And just kind of hold that thought, and I'll come back to it. Because now I want to jump to the income statement, which is the second statement in the financial statements that we've talked about. So in QuickBooks, the very first set of accounts on the income statement are your income accounts. And in this example, we have billable expense income, we have design income. So we have several different categories of income that we have for this I think this is a landscaping business that we're using, the sample company. So all of our income that we have coming in, and I'm just scrolling up. And then we have, because this particular company has inventory, so it has products that it sells to its customers. And when it sells those products, there's a cost to that business. And that cost we call is cost of goods sold. So it's, again, using the example of like the table that I did earlier. I purchased a table from a furniture manufacturer for $100. That's my cost. But then when I sell it to my customers at $500, I not only have to record my sales of $500, but I also need to record what that table cost me, which was $100. And that's what cost of goods sold is. Then we have our expenses. These are all of our ordinary expenses, advertising, dues, our insurance. If we have employees, if we have license, permits, we have to hire a lawyer, we have to pay our accountant, we have repairs, we have utilities, we have, if we're renting a building or equipment, we have that, our telephone, all of those are expenses. So on our income statement, we have all of our income and all of our expenses. And we want to know, of course, what our net income is, or our net profit, I should say. So our net profit will be all of our income, subtracted all of our expenses, and that gives us our net profit. Our net profit then, and QuickBooks does all this in the background, as long as we do the transactions correctly. But our net profit then goes into our, let me get to it, on our balance sheet, our equity. Can't find it, sorry. Hopefully y'all aren't getting dizzy. It goes into our balance sheet by way of retained earnings. So, are y'all kind of dizzy? Y'all like, what the crap did she just say? That is basically accounting, the first semester accounting. And that's why it's important that if you haven't taken it, you do need to take it. I highly recommend you take it. It will be time consuming. You can take it as an audit, which means you won't get a grade, but you will still get the knowledge. All righty. And a lot of what I just said, again, it is in the material that Christopher sent you a link to. And we also have some more sheets, handouts that we can give you for that. So I will pause and see if there's anything in Q&A. Okay, I don't believe so. Christopher, did you take me off?
I hope I didn't.
Well, you're the host, and I don't, let's see, did you?
Oh, I guess I have to make
Yeah,
you go home.
You did.
There we go.
All righty. I was like, what happened to my screen?
There's a question from Enrique. Can you talk a bit about depreciation? I see it on the chart of accounts.
Sure, let me grab some water real quick. So one of the things that we do encourage our businesses to do, and you've kind of heard me talk about it at the beginning, is that you should have an accountant, and that can be a very knowledgeable bookkeeper. It can also be a CPA. But if you are starting out in business, highly recommend for really, I would say your first 5 years. That would be ideal. to have one of those professionals to do your books for you. And saying that, that's really where depreciation really can be handled. You on a day-to-day basis as a business owner, you're really not concerned with depreciation. Depreciation is basically a tax number. I'm sorry, a number that you can put on your tax return that can reduce the amount of taxes that you pay. It's not anything that's going to affect your cash. It's not going to affect taxes that you pay as far as gross receipts taxes. It's not going to affect that. And it's just really an end of year transaction that is done, and is done by your accountant. But really, depreciation is basically taking a capital investment, and a capital investment would be something that has some piece of equipment or building that has a life longer than 1 year. It's going to, you're going to be able to use it more than 1 year. So depreciation is usually taken on, let's say if you purchase a building for your business, the Internal Revenue Service will not allow you to write off that building as an expense in the year that you purchased it. So what you have to do is depreciate it, basically write it off in for building either 10 or 15 years. You would just take a portion of the cost of that building and report it to the Internal Revenue Service as an expense. So that's basically depreciation. Probably got a little bit more in depth in it than what I wanted to. All right. So back on our balance sheet, our chart of accounts. For our balance sheet accounts, I don't know if you all noticed this, but in the far right-hand corner, there is a underline, there's an action column, and it lists for all of our balance sheet accounts, it says view register. And basically the register is just like your checkbook. I mean, it looks exactly like your checkbook. So I'll just do one for, let's see, I want to do something different. Let's go and do accounts receivables. I'll show you that. So here is where, of course, you have your date, and then what type of transaction this is. And this one is an invoice, and it gives us the name of the customer, because customers are tied with accounts receivables, right? So we allow this customer to charge $362.07. And they need to pay us by September 16th, this amount. Okay. Here's another one, it's a little bit different. On August, this sporting goods store charged $477.50, and they need to pay us by the 16th, which is an invoice. But also on the 17th, they made a payment. And again, QuickBooks tells us right here that this is a payment, the same company, and it's in a different column, this 387, it's in the payment column where they actually paid us. Okay, so again, it looks just like your check register where money's coming in and money's going out. So this is what all of your balance sheet accounts, all of your asset and liability accounts will have, is a register. When you get to your income statement accounts, as well as, let me go back up so you can see it. as well as your equity accounts or your retained earnings account, you will not see a register. The only thing you could do is view a report or run a report. Okay. All righty. Enough about chart of accounts, unless someone else has a question. Get back to my slide, see where I am. Okay. I don't see any questions. Ready? So now what I want to do with the balance of our time is to show you how you would pay your vendors. And then after this, then I'll let you go. So we'll probably get finished before 1:30. I thought we would probably do a quick break, like a 20-minute break, but I think we're going to I'll go on and finish this part and then we'll end for the day. But before I do that, let me grab some water. And I think have another poll question. So if you guys can answer that while I take a quick break here. So we had one question that came up, Chris, and I could not answer it. And that was the currency. Does it include cryptocurrency that QuickBooks will allow you to record? And I was like, I don't know. I got to look that up.
That's a new one. I bet you they have an app that lets you record or collect the cryptocurrency, but I don't know about reporting it as a taxable item.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was one of the multiple currencies that it allowed you to do. So cool. All righty. So either that last section that I did about chart of accounts was like, whoo, do I really want to do this? Or you guys are like, oh yeah, I need to take a accounting course. So it looks like the majority of you have not taken the first level accounting class. So I know lots of times, we will get business owners that will come in or want to be business owners, and they're like, what classes do I need to take? Or is there like a program or something? And I'm always telling them, accounting, take that first semester accounting course. Very important. Okay. So on our navigation bar, our left navigation bar, here's our expenses. And I'll just click on that. And earlier in just the slides, I had showed you the vendors. So I've already talked about that, so I won't talk about that again. So I'll go to expenses. So this is just one way of recording either creating a bill or writing a check or let's see, there's several other things that you can do. Instead of me trying to guess, all we need to do is right here where it says new transaction. And again, there's an arrow that's pointing down. We can click on that arrow pointing down, and then all the different things that we can do with the vendor will come up. Another way to get to this same drop-down box is again on the navigation bar, but the plus new button that's right here. I can click on that. And then here's my vendors. And that basically that same list that I had in the vendor area, I have right here. So just different ways that you can get to the same transaction type. Okay. So a big question that people will ask, especially when we run through this, is what's an expense? And then what's a check? I mean, isn't that kind of the same thing? Because it's, money that I am paying out for whatever goods or services, right? So how do you know when to use the expense option and when to use the check option? Well, I recommend that you use the expense option when the purchase that you made is with a credit card. So when you go to the hardware store and instead of writing out a check, I don't know how many people actually still do that, take a checkbook with them, but you pay it with a credit card or your debit card. When you come back into QuickBooks, you want to record that as an expense. Okay. QuickBooks also allows you to print checks. And I actually still print checks for my business. I still use that. And then, of course, the bill. So let's start with the bill first, and then we'll get into how we're actually going to pay it. So all I did was just click on the bill, and then we have this screen that pops up that tells us it always tells you where you are. If you look at the top left corner, it will say bill, or if you're in a purchase order, it'll say purchase order or checking or even expense. So it'll tell you where you are. Then to the far right, you have the big X. So if you ever decide, oh, I don't want any of this, I'll do it later, or change my mind, you can always click the X. And when you click the X, QuickBooks, if I had something in there, it would have said, hey, do you really want to exit out of here, or you want to save it? Since I didn't put anything in there, then it took me out automatically, right? So I'll go back to bill. Then on this next set of rows, we have this little fill in box, and it has vendor. So it wants us to choose which vendor that we are dealing with. Okay. Sorry, I just saw something in chat. I have to make sure it wasn't a question. So the neat thing about vendors and customers, this happens to, let's say that it's an entirely new vendor that we have never purchased anything from in the past. So I know that this is not in there. So I'm going to just type in Clovis hardware. We don't have one here, so I'm not giving any business away. So because it is not in our system, then QuickBooks says, hey, this is a new vendor. Do you want to go on and add it? And I can just go on and click add new. And then I get this little drawer that opens up to the side from the right side. Now I can choose to, at this time, go on and fill in information that I may have on this vendor, email, phone number. If there's a particular person I need to assign to this vendor, I can do that. How I want the vendor's name to be printed on the checks. So, some of your bills, the name of the company might be Clovis Hardware, but they may want you to print checks where it's the Clovis hardware. So, it'd be different. So you can make those changes. The address, and then any notes that you may have for this particular vendor. You may say that this is Tom's brother-in-law, whatever notes you may have. It doesn't matter because this is for you internally. Then any attachments. So let's say that you had an electronic copy of that bill that Clovis Hardware sent you, then you can attach it here. Or if you have a business card, because we're talking about the vendor. So you don't attach the bill here. So sorry, misspoke. So let's say you have the business card, or maybe you have a brochure, or maybe an electronic calendar or something for this particular vendor. Then you could do the attachment here. Also, and again, this is a conversation that you can have with your accountant or one of my colleagues. You may have to send this vendor a 1099 at the end of the year. So you may want to get this vendor's employee or federal employer identification number, or their social security number, whichever way that the Internal Revenue Service can identify this vendor. And you can actually have your vendor fill out what's called a W-9, and they can give all that information to you. But again, that's a conversation you could have with one of my colleagues or myself or your accountant. And then you can tell QuickBooks to track payments for 1099, which really does come in handy. The terms that this vendor will give you, if they will say, hey, once you get this, once we send you the bill that you owe us, then you have 15 days to pay us. So you can actually set that up automatically where QuickBooks will compute that for you. Or remind you, sorry, not compute it. The account number that vendor has assigned to you. And then let's say if there is a purchase that, you just always make from this particular vendor. So Clovis Hardware in this example. And so we always purchase just supplies from them. So using our chart of accounts, okay, then we can say every time we purchase from them, it is for job materials. And we just want to just label it just as job materials. And I'll show you how this will come in handy here shortly. So those are the things that we can kind of fill out for this particular vendor. And so we can do save. And then if you don't have all that information and you're just wanting to enter this bill, you can always go back to that vendor section later and add all that information. Okay, so you don't have to do it at one time. But based on what I put in for this particular vendor, now QuickBooks has filled in some boxes for me. And I should have showed you this earlier. So because I put Clovis Hardware in, QuickBooks will automatically put in whatever the address is that I put. I did not enter a street number and name. So it didn't put anything here. But I can go on and add it. And everything's on Main Street, right? I can add it here. Now I do tab, and then under terms, notice I put in net 15. That's what I said, that the terms that they give me. So QuickBooks automatically put in the net 15 for me. And this can be changed. See, I still have the same drop down box. And this becomes important, especially because we're doing a bill. And I'll show you how here in a little bit. So what QuickBooks also does is based on the bill date. So QuickBooks will automatically default to today's date. So today is October 6th, one day before Sandra's 61st birthday. Ha 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 ha. Okay, that's all a joke. So if this bill date is different, because they could have sent you out the bill, but you don't get it physically, or you don't look at it electronically until 2 or 3 days later. And so you may have to change the bill date. So I want to show you all a really neat trick. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. So as the date is highlighted, all I'm doing on my keyboard is the minus key or the dash. And notice what happens. So I press my minus, and you guys see what happens? The dates decrease. Isn't that cool? I think that's so cool.
I was oohing and eyeing in the background.
You were what?
Oohing and eyeing.
Oh, now on my keyboard, I am hitting the plus key. And look what happens. Isn't that so cool? Yes. I could just hear you guys cheering and ooh and eyeing, like Christopher said, right? Now, again, on my keyboard, I am going to select the letter M, and then look what happens to my date. So M, and can you see it? It changes to October 1st. Then I am going to select the H key on my keyboard, and look what it does to the date. It changes it to October 31st. That is so cool, right? I could do Y, and look what happens with Y. It changes it to January 1, 2022. So if you haven't caught on what it does, all it is either taking like the month, I put in M, and it just takes us to the first day of the month. I put in H, which is the last letter in the word month, and it takes us to the end of the month. What do you think? What happens if I type R? It'll take us to the last day of the year. Yay! QuickBooks is so smart. Yay! All right. Let me show you another tip now that I've gone all over this. The neat thing about QuickBooks, it does try to help you with keystrokes. So when you're putting in the date, you don't have to put in all the dashes. So I can, to get back to the 6th, I can, well, I'll show you the easy way of doing it. I can just type the letter T, and it takes me to today. Pretty cool, right? But what I was going to tell you, so let's say that the bill date was actually September 31 of this year. So I can type 09 30. There's actually 30 days in September, right? 30, and then 2022. Or I'm sorry, 22. So I just typed in the 2-digit month, always at 0, right? If it's a single digit. And then the date. And again, if it's a single digit, do the 0 in the front. And then the year, just the last 2 digits of the year. And then I just type tab. And QuickBooks will automatically fill in the dashes. So again, saves me on keystrokes. Yay! This is dope. Love it. And also notice, because I said that the terms were net 15 and I put in the bill date of September 30, QuickBooks says, hey, this is due October 15th. So that helps. All right. The other pre-fill that it did was under here in the category details, because I told QuickBooks that I usually do job materials, and this will be a common accounting, a common account that I will use for this vendor, but I can always change it. Okay, so let's say that this vendor, let's say that I just purchased some, again, let's do wooden doors. And the total amount was $200. Let's say $225.50 because there was tax, right? Now, the other thing that I can do with this bill is I can make it billable, which means that I am buying these wooden doors for a certain customer, and I'm going to bill these doors to that particular customer when I create that customer's invoice. So if that's what I want to do, then I have to mark that it is billable. I also, if I'm going to also do the tax to that customer, then I would select that. And then I need to choose the customer. And I'm just going to pick on Amy's. So now I have that particular wooden door that I'm going to bill to Amy. I'm going to purchase it from Clovis Hardware. And when I get it, then I'm going to put it in for Amy's Bird Sanctuary and then create an invoice for her at a later date with this door. Yes, sir.
Sandra, we have a question about how can we check the tax rate? You're probably going to get into this later on.
Yeah, and this tax rate would only come involved when we do the invoicing. And the tax will, it will depend on where the item was purchased from. Okay, let me say that. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that next week. I don't want to get into that right now. But this tax deals with what you're going to charge Amy, okay? Not what you're paying for the wooden doors, if that makes sense. Okay. If I had some more items that I purchased from this particular company, then I can go on and list them there if I wanted it separately, or services, just depending on what I purchased. And then here in the memo line, and this is for your business internally, so you, the business owner, you can also put in here wooden doors or wood doors. I said wooden. And you can also put in the invoice number that Clovis Hardware gave you. So really whatever you want here, you can put. And I highly recommend you do put it here. And then again, if that's an electronic copy of the bill that they sent, then you want to go on. I would recommend you go on and attach it here. Do I have another question, or you answered it?
Oh, this one, you're going to probably get into this too when you're invoicing. But so if you bought the doors from this place, but you wanted to upcharge them, could you do that?
Yes. Yes. And when we do the invoicing, that's where we're going to upcharge.
And then there was a question about how to check the New Mexico gross receipts tax rates. And I answered that in the chat. I put the website to the tax schedule, and it changes every 6 months.
Oh, okay. Was that okay? I was thinking they were asking a different question on the tax question, but okay. But we will talk about it more when we do invoicing. So at this point at the bottom, we have several choices here. We can cancel, and everything that we've done, except with the vendor, particular information up here, it will go away. Or we can clear it, and basically it will clear everything, but it'll keep us in the bill section. We can also make this bill recurring. And again, that's if you're going to use it often, you know, it's going to be basically the same thing. You can make it a recurring bill. We can also save. And so I'm going to select save because I don't want to lose this. So it saved my bill. And now you notice that my make recurring is white. Before it was grayed out, so I really couldn't click it. But now if I click on make recurring, then it will actually do it. I actually have the option. Okay. We have another button that came up, and this is the more button after we saved it. So we can copy this bill, we can delete it, we can look at the transactional journal, which basically is showing us the accounting behind this transaction. We could show the audit history as well too. I just want to show you the transactional journal. So this is the accounting. I believe someone had asked me about the general ledger. Well, this is some of the things that will go into a general ledger. Well, it will go into a general ledger, but it's showing us the debit and the credit that's happening on this particular transaction. So because we are not paying this money yet to Clovis Hardware, we're basically creating a debt that we owe. Then QuickBooks in the background is going to charge this amount to accounts payable. So it's going to increase our debt obligation. Then we're also getting these wood doors in theory. So QuickBooks is also going to increase our job materials account by the same amount. So this transaction basically represents what we call in accounting as a double entry. So whatever I do to one account, whether I increase it or decrease it, I have to do the same thing to another account where it's either decreasing or increasing, but it has to balance. So in this example, I increased both of these accounts. That's the double entry. Ta-da! Just gave y'all some more accounting. Haha, 201, which I know you just love it, right? Okay. Then we can go back to reports. So that's our expenses. So let's go back in and actually I just went back into vendors expenses and then vendors. And instead of strolling down to try to find this particular vendor, although it'd be easier because it's just in the C's, I can just type Clovis. And so Clovis Hardware will come up. I can click it. And now I can look at anything that's dealing with this particular vendor. So here I see the bill that I just created. Everybody sees that, right? So I can click on that bill and it takes me to that same screen. Okay. So the other thing that I can do is I can schedule an online payment. And this is where QuickBooks will actually go into whatever account that I tell it to, whether it's my checking account or maybe I'm a pay with a credit card, and it will on that particular date that I scheduled it, it will go on and take it out of my account, send it over to Clovis Hardware and pay this for me. And I do believe that there's a fee for that, and I'll have to look it up to make sure that there's a fee and to see what it is, because I don't know what it is by heart. Okay. Now down here at the bottom right, I have a little green button, and the thing that it says is save and schedule a payment, but there's a little arrow over here to the right. So I want to click on that arrow, and it gives me more choices. I can either save a new, and what this will do is save this bill, and then it will open up a new bill window that I can go and I can record more bills, whether it's for Clovis Hardware or if it's for another vendor. Or I can do save and close. And I'm going to do save and close, and it's just going to take me back to that screen where I was before I clicked on this bill. Okay. Then it actually shows me also the next action that needs to happen for this particular transaction. And that is to schedule and pay, or mark as paid. I can copy it, I can edit it. So another way to get back to the same screen, or I can delete it. All right, any questions for this one, Christopher? Or I can go on and go.
Let's see.
The time we have 11:50.
No, nothing new has come in.
Oh, okay. So I guess because I just didn't click. All right, just the other thing I want to show you, because this works really the same on the customers as well too. Since I'm on vendor, remember that note that I put on that this is Tom's brother-in-law. This is where my notes will appear. And if I needed to edit, then this is where I can go back in and I can add the email or the address or whatever else that I need to add, or attachments. So that same screen that we were at before. If I didn't make any changes, I can click this X here and then it just close it up. Okay. So I have created a bill for this particular vendor, and this little arrow, hopefully you guys can see it. You can see my cursor kind of going around it. It's an arrow that's pointing to the right with 3 little dashes. I can click on that, and then it takes me back to where I can see all of my vendors. Okay. All right. So then the next thing, I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I want to go to the plus new, and still on vendors. So some clients that I've worked with, they only pay or write out checks like either once a week or maybe every 10 days or something like that. So they're not writing checks every day. This would be a great example of how you can use the bill and then the bill pay system, where again, you're getting those bills on a daily basis. And, just to keep up with your paperwork, you can record them daily, but you're not going to pay them until later. So now we're at the date where we are going to pay some bills now. So again, I did the plus new under the vendors, and I'm gonna click Pay Bills. So again, this is one of those workflow systems. First thing I did was bills. I created the bill, and now I need to pay the bill. So we have several bills that we have already entered previously, and they will all appear here, as well as my Clovis hardware that I had just added. QuickBooks gives us the names of all the vendors here, the due date, how much that we owe them. And notice that this open balance, there's not a way that I can change the open balance here. I can see it, but I can't change it. And over here under the payment column, notice that there is a fill-in box that I can change. And then we have the total amount column. And again, I cannot change these. It's going to compute for me automatically. So up at the top, the first thing that we need to decide is how we are going to pay these bills. And right now, MasterCard as the payment account is showing. I'm not going to use a card. I'm actually going to use our checkbook. So all I did was just click on this arrow that's pointing down, and I get this drop down box, and I'm going to select checking. So once I select the checking account, QuickBooks tells me how much is my book balance. So there's a difference between book balance and bank balance. And we'll see that next week when we do reconciliation. But your book balance is how much you say that you have available to you after all of your checks and your deposits that you have recorded in QuickBooks. That's what this balance is, okay? And then the payment date, again, it will automatically default to today. So you could, if you wanted to, let's say I'm really not going to pay them until tomorrow, I can change that to October 7th. And then for those of you who are actually having QuickBooks print the checks for you, I recommend that you take out the physical checks and you see what that starting check number is, and make sure that you change it here if it's different. Okay, we'll just keep it at 71. All right, so the other things that we can do with these columns is we can sort by any of the first four. So we can sort alphabetically. If we had a reference number, again, we would have had to put that when we created the bill. We can also sort by due date, and we can sort by the amount. So all it is just a quick little click. And now it shows me the bill with the highest amount to the lowest. So it's going in descending order. If I do the due date, then it's going to show me the earliest date that's due to the later date. And then, of course, alphabetically. Okay. So how I activate these is over to the far left. There is just a square column, and then each of our vendors have a little square. And so I can just click in that little square for PG&E, and then notice that over here in my payment column, the 8644, which is the open balance right here, will appear. And then the total amount is zero. I mean, is 8644. Sorry, not zero. I was looking at something else. Okay. Let's say I'm just going to select Clovis Hardware. And for Clovis Hardware, I'm just going to pay them $150. So QuickBooks will allow me to change the payment amount. And I hit tab. And so the total payment for both of these bills will be the $236.44. Okay. All righty. So let's see. So I said that I want to print these checks. So I need to select here, print later. And go here at the bottom. And I have 3 other options. And so I want to do save and print. So I'm going to go on. I don't see anyone has any questions. So now it sends me to the print screen. And of course, I haven't set it up yet. But you have 2 check options. I use actually the voucher for my checks, but whichever one you use, a voucher, the standard, it's just to click over. You can also view, preview, and print samples. So this is important as well too. Because you do want to probably do this before you actually go and print a check. And here QuickBooks is asking you, hey, after you did the preview and you printed the sample, is everything lining up? Does it look okay? Or do you need to continue to set up? But we're going to say, yes, we're finished with setup. Okay. So now it takes us to the print check screen. And again, we need to, if we're printing from a different checking account, for those of you who have 2 different checking accounts, I mean, you can change it at this point. We only have one. We need to tell QuickBooks what's the starting check number. And we said it was 71, so we'll continue to use that. And then we need to say which checks that we want it to print. So we need to actually put a check mark here. And then up here at the top, QuickBooks tells us there's two checks that you've selected. And this is the total amount. Okay. So we have some more options down here. You can kind of look at those. And now I'm going to select preview and print, and notice that there is not a little arrow that I can have at some different choices. So this is what it's going to look like when I print these checks out, because your checks will already be pre-formatted with whatever it needs to have on it. This is the only thing that QuickBooks will print. And so this is the second check, Clovis Hardware. And then this information is this on the stubs, the check stubs. Okay. So we can either print at this point or we can close it. So we're just going to do close because we're really not going to print these. And then QuickBooks asks you if the checks printed correctly. So you want to make sure before you select done that those checks are printed. And if they did not print correctly, then you can tell QuickBooks, well, which check really didn't print right. So maybe it was check number 72, or all checks didn't print at all. And so we just want to keep them in the checklist to print later. We have that option as well too. But we'll say yes, that they all printed correctly, and then click done. And now there's nothing in the print check queue because we're finished. Now I will caution you. Oh, there's something in Q&A. Let me see.
Sandra, it was a question. It's a question about if you don't use the printed checks, if you're writing checks from a checkbook, can you give us an example of what that would look like?
Yes. Yeah. So let me go back to pay bills.
My
And
advice to everybody, Sandra, is please just buy the print checks and print them.
so what you would do if you hand wrote the check, then instead of doing print later, just do hold on here, let me make sure. Yes. It's a good question because I hardly ever do it. Okay. I think you just will not do print later. Yes, just don't do print later. Still do it this way, especially if you've entered it into pay bills. And that kind of is going to go into my next little small lecture I was going to give you. So go on and put whatever the handwritten check was. And then just do save and close. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we can't use that one. So let's use check number 75. Well, let's use 175. There we go. And let's go back and look at this. Just going real quick so you can kind of see that. And so there is the check for Norton Lumber of 175. And so it's already recorded in my checkbook. So that's how you would do a handwritten check. When you're using bill pay. Okay.
Oh, and then there's another question. If we are doing Lee asked, if we're doing a batch of checks and one vendor has a bunch of invoices that the list would the list continue on the next page? Will it automatically print the next check and assign it a void? Let me allow Leela to speak, Sandra, because that question has a lot of.
Yeah.
Leela, you're allowed to speak. You're on mute. Unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Or if you have your.
Okay. So when I print a batch of checks and I have one vendor that has like 10 invoices I'm paying, right now the list of invoices goes on the stubs underneath on the voucher. It'll automatically use my next check number, but then it voids that in the system knowing that it printed on another check. So would this one do the same? Because I'm printing not just one person with 10 checks, but like 20 people. And this one particular one has like 10 different invoices on it.
So in QuickBooks, it is saying that each of those invoices is printing a check for it, but is voiding it out. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to put all of those 10 invoices on one check, I assume.
Right. Yes.
Okay. But if that ledger on the voucher is too long, on the program I use now, it uses the next page, which happens to be a check.
Gotcha.
But then it voids that in my system. Can QuickBooks do the same?
Wow. I don't know. I have never had so many invoices that would print on the stub that would have to go to another page. I will try to research that for you and find out.
Okay.
Okay. So really the question is how many invoices can appear on one stub. Okay, we'll find out and have that question for you answered.
And we have one more question from Mario. He says he has a QuickBooks Online account already, and he wants to know if you could unsubscribe and resubscribe for the discount. Mario, I would suspect that they are giving you the discount based on an email address. So you'd probably have to create an account with a new email address to get the discount.
Okay. So that's the enter bill and then the pay bill sequence. And just remember, there will be days you will sleep, probably several nights between the two. But you can see how you can use it in your business. So before we end for the day, I do want to just show you the check and probably the expense, which is going to be very similar. So again, I go to the plus new button on the left navigation bar. And then under vendors, I'll select a check. Now, how you would do the check would be, let's say that you do just handwrite a check, or you just want QuickBooks to print a check for you, but you have not, and this is important, you guys, you have not entered it in to the bill pay system. Okay. So those are the two reasons that you would use the check option. Either it's a handwritten check that's not an enter bill, or it's a check, again, that you have not entered in enter bill and you just want it to pay that particular vendor. So still the same thing, and we'll just select whatever vendor has an S in their name. So we'll say Books by Bessie. And then we'll tab. And again, if you have more than one checking account, you just want to make sure you select the right checking account. And it'll give you whatever your current book balance is, which is $759. Actually, the 55 has already been taken out. So when I brought up Books by Bessie, and this is what you're going to have to be careful with. QuickBooks does automatic fill-ins, and you can take that option off, where you would go to the gear and under expenses, you can take that option off where it will not do automatic fills. Well, this is already set to automatic fills to the point where QuickBooks automatically assigned it to a category and automatically put an amount in there, which could be different than what you are actually writing this check for. So you really have to be careful when you're dealing with those automatic fills. And I'm saying FILL, so automatic fill. Now, sometimes my New Mexico, West Texas slang kind of comes into place. So I want to make sure I pronunciate correctly. All righty. So everything is okay. Again, because we use the last check number of 175, QuickBooks automatically defaults to 176. But if we've already handwritten that check, we want to make sure that we enter the correct check number. Okay. Or if we are going to allow QuickBooks to print later for us, then we just select the print later dialog box here. Categories, let's say that we don't want to do the legal and professional. It is, and that's interesting. Oh, okay, because she's a bookkeeper. Okay. Let's say that we actually purchased some office supplies from her for whatever reason. So maybe it was a really unique ledger that she had or something. It didn't matter. And it was $15. Oops. 15. And of course, this isn't tied to any customer because this is something that we're going to use internally. And again, whatever memo you want to put in, really up to you. Ledger book. And again, an electronic copy of that invoice or receipt or whatever you have, you can upload it here. So really works the same way as the print bill or pay bill, I'm sorry, option that we did. The only thing different is really just up here at the top left where it says check to be printed. Okay. Is that question for what we're working on, or is that another question? Oh, that's just a thank you. Okay. All righty. So here we can do save and new just by clicking on that drop down arrow, or we could do save and close. And we're going to do save and close. And then just really quick, I want to show you. Oh, so go back to the bank register since I'm already there. What I did not do is change the date. So today's date is the 6th. This is showing September 30. So I can click back on here. And then I have some options. I can delete, edit, cancel, or save. And I'm going to, I might be able to change it here. Sometimes they want you to go back to edit. So I just clicked on the T on the keyboard so it can change to today's date. Let's see if it'll let me. Okay. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So it did let me change the date. But if I needed to change something else, I do need to go to edit and like change the amount here. So some things you can change on that little right here, and some things you can't. I always make it a habit just to go to edit and not even try to change things here. But all right. So let me show you expense. Get to it the same way, the plus new. And again, I know it's an expense. And for this one, we are going to go to National Eye Care. And instead of paying with a check, we're going to pay with a credit card. So we're going to select whichever credit card that we are going to use. We're going to use a MasterCard. We're going to put in today's date. Remember what I said? QuickBooks will always remember the last date of that transaction that you created, not the one that I edited to. So we're going to put today's date just with a T. Payment method. I really cannot tell you why they have this twice, but anyway, it's with the MasterCard. And if you have a reference number, that's kind of hard because I know on those, when you get your receipts where you have paid with the credit card, there's a lot of numbers. And I have had a hard time trying to correlate the numbers on the receipts to what's on the credit card statement. So I rarely ever fill anything for a credit card charge reference number. I haven't been able to do it. So let's say here we are going to again purchase some office supplies. So I can just begin to type in OFF, and then you see office supply shows up. I can just click on it, tab over, and let's say this was some paper. I guess you probably wouldn't buy that with an insurance company. But, and let's say it was $25, and notice I only put 25. QuickBooks automatically will put the decimal and the leading zeros in there for me. I'm not going to assign it to a customer or anything. And again, put something in the memo. I can attach it. I don't attach anything. And then I can save and close. So these are really the main things that you will work on, and that really I will show you in this webinar for expenses, check, bills, and then the pay the bills. Okay. So with that, Chris, if we want to stop recording, I guess I could do that. And then we can address any questions that folks may have.